welcome back. My name is Jill Zimorski, and I'm a Chicago-based Master Sommelier and wine educator. And I'm here to share with you tips and techniques that I learned from and developed while I was studying for the Master Sommelier exam. I found them to be really helpful in my journey, and I hope that you might find them to be helpful in yours as well. Theory is a huge part of this whole process, and in fact, it's probably my favorite part. When I was first deciding to tackle the Master Sommelier exam, I was living in Aspen, Colorado, and I was practicing blind tasting with Jay Fletcher. And Jay Fletcher is a pretty iconic, well-known Master Sommelier, and he was very gracious with his time and mentorship with me for tasting. But he made a comment kind of early on when I first got to know him, and he referenced some other folks who either lived or had lived in Aspen and had already passed the Master Sommelier exam. And he referred to at least one of these individuals as a theory beast. And I thought, I want to be a theory beast too. And so I decided to really tackle this. And one thing about studying for theory is you can study a lot for theory. There's only so much wine you can taste before you get palate fatigue or drunk. You don't have an infinite ability to just taste wine for hours and hours and hours on end. You can study for hours and hours and hours on end, but the key is to study the right way. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people. It was hard for me to figure out what to spend your time on. And I believed then, and I still believe now, in this idea that I named holistic studying, where I would approach every aspect of my studying from all these different ways to try and engage my brain in these different manners. And so one thing I did for myself is I filled stacks of spiral notebooks with my own handwritten, like little mini study guides. I would study the major regions, the major appellations, the major wines, wine laws, and I would condense and succinctly summarize all of these in notebooks. And I believed, and I've done some research, that there's evidence that when you write something down as opposed to type it, you're able to remember it a little bit better. But I didn't stop there. A Master Sommelier friend of mine gave me a great suggestion of something that he did when he was studying for the Master Sommelier exam. His name is Sir Lucero, and he mentioned to me that he recorded podcasts for himself. I didn't know what he was talking about, so he explained it to me, and I took this idea and I ran with it. So I am a fan of using Apple products. So if you do not use Apple computers or iPhones, you might have to figure out, a few technical things about how to do this for yourself. But the long and short of it is I would take these stacks and stacks of, information that I had condensed, and using GarageBand, which is an app that's built into, a MacBook or a MacBook Air, and there's a setting on there where you can record a podcast. And I would read, using the microphone on my computer, these short condensed study guides that I made for myself, detailing the most important things about an appellation or a wine or a producer. Sometimes I would do lists of vintages or terms for, wine regions from around the world. And I named these based on the category, whether it was spirits or Italy, or something like that. And then I would, name it based on what I was specifically talking about, Barolo DOCG. And using the GarageBand app, you can convert it to iTunes, and then you can sync those recordings to your phone. And so I created a playlist on my phone for wine podcasts. And at latest count, I believe I have over 20 hours of 2 to 5 minute podcasts of myself talking about wine. It's not scintillating listening, but it was a way where I could passively absorb information that I knew I might need for the theory exam. So, for example, if I was walking to work, I would plug in my headphones and I would listen to these podcasts, and I would just put them on shuffle. And so it would mix up whatever I had recorded. And so it might go from a podcast about the Mosel region of Germany to a podcast about Sonoma County, and just these short little snippets. The key is that these podcasts need to be brief. Typically anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. And the reason for that is if they go longer than that, just this idea of hearing yourself kind of talking, or repeating or regurgitating information and data, you kind of tune out. at the Master Sommelier level, the theory exam is an oral exam. And I think it's an important thing to what I call practice the way you're going to play. So you need to be used to hearing something and being able to respond audibly as opposed to just reading. And sometimes I would ask and answer questions on podcasts. And so if I wasn't around anyone or in my car, I would hear myself ask a question and I would say what the answer was. And then I would, on the recording, indicate what the correct answer was. So hopefully I got it right. So you've written a synopsis of a study guide, you've written it, not typed it, then you've recorded that information, and then you're able to listen to it over and over. And that repetitive process I found to be incredibly helpful in getting this information to stick, and also in the manner of studying that would be most applicable for the Master Sommelier theory exam. It might not be the most interesting stuff to listen to, and boy, when I passed theory was I excited to listen to music again, but it was something that I thought was incredibly helpful for me. It's not too hard to do, and if you have a computer and a smartphone, you can probably figure out how to do it for yourself as well. I thought it was useful, and I hope that you might as well.